Welcome to the CyBUr Guy Podcast, your source for engaging cyber education, cyber discussions, and a look at current cyber news and trends with retired FBI Special Agent Darren Mott.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the CyBUr Guy Podcast. I am your host, retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent Darren Mott. And in this episode, more interviews from the 2023 National Cyber Summit here in Huntsville. This one's going to be with a couple high school kids, Andrew Handley and Teni Akinsoto, who stopped by the booth. They were actually they're one of the first folks to stop by, ask what I was doing there. And I said, hey, throw on the headphones and let's have a quick chat. And so it kind of gets their perspective. Andrew is interested in cybersecurity. Teni, not so much. He was just there supporting his friends. So always interesting to interview the younger generation, see kind of where they're coming from, what they're thinking, and left me quite happy with kind of the state of affairs, at least as far as these particular gentlemen go to. They're from James Clemmons High School, so thumbs up to James Clemmons. You got some good ones there. So we'll have that interview here in a bit. Just want to touch base on a couple other things going on. If you are missing the cyber news piece I would do on this podcast, there's been a lot of cyber news stuff. As you may or may not know, I have moved my cyber news segment to a separate podcast. So this is called the Cyber Smart Morning News Update. And I do that every morning. It comes out every morning. And honestly, from a behind the scenes perspective, I do it the night before, so I don't have to get up at 3 o'clock and do it. So I do it then. And honestly, sometimes I'll finish it and then something will happen and I'll miss it and I'll have to talk about it the next day. But that's kind of where I'm talking about all the new stuff. I try to keep it to under 15 minutes for a variety of reasons. I don't want to take up all day talking cyber news because there's always tons of it. So some things I have to leave out, but it's mostly kind of the headlines of the news story and then some education and large opinion thrown in there for the mix, because that's kind of how I'm doing that. So if you're so inclined, that's the Cyber Smart Morning News Update. Feel free to you can get that at the same place you're getting this podcast. Just go ahead and subscribe to that. Would be great. I'm trying to build that one up. I've been doing it for 2 months now. I have not missed a day. I don't do it on weekends, but I do it Monday through Friday. Friday is an op-ed, although in newspaper lingo, op-ed means opinion and editorial, and my lingo means opinion and education. So I pick a topic and kind of just focus on that on Friday. So that's kind of how I have that organized. I've also started doing a Substack. I post a lot on LinkedIn, but because of character restrictions and things like that, it's hard to give a whole lot of deep thought into LinkedIn posts. So I started a CyBUr Guy Substack. You can find it, and I kind of go into a little more detail on certain topics. Don't write there all the time, just kind of when something hits me. The most recent one I did on October 31st at the end of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, talking about whether or not it was a success. You have to go read to find out whether I thought it was or not. So I commend you to those particular locations as well. I have about, looking at this, I have about 6 or 7 more of these interviews to do. I'm going to do a couple of them over the course of the next couple of days and get them out. Then after that, kind of go back to more longer form interviews. So I'm still working on that. If you have any particular topics of interest you may be wanting to hear, let me know, and I'll see if I can find someone within that particular realm of professionality to help me with it. I don't even know if that's a word, but so apologies on that. So that's kind of where we're going with that. So I guess that's kind of all the really updated news to kind of mention what I'm kind of doing with some of the stuff I'm doing. And so as always, I am always interested in hearing thoughts, comments, and suggestions. And we'll talk about that at the end of the podcast, how you can find me there. Let's get into this particular episode's interview, Andrew Handley and Teni Akinsoto from James Clemmons High School. So I'm joined now by Andrew Handley and Teni Akinsoto of James Clemmons High School, who are at the National Cyber Summit, and they decided to sit down and ask me a couple of questions, and they wanted to be on the podcast. So here we are. We are on the podcast, the CyBUr Guy Podcast. Andrew has an interest in cybersecurity. Teni, not so much. He's more just following his friend around, but he's interested in electrical and chemical engineering. But so let me ask you this, Andrew. Well, I'll ask both of you, really. Since you're in high school, let me ask you, okay, here's first cybersecurity question for both of you. Do you have TikTok?
No.
I do.
Yeah.
You should be in cybersecurity. You should not. TikTok's got to go. Get rid of TikTok. It is a horrible platform.
Yeah,
Chinese stealing all of your information. You need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead. So what you go? What is, you're in high school. What do you want to talk about? What are we talking about here?
So I do, for any kid who does want to get in, for any kid that does want to get into cybersecurity, they do want to at least try to think of, before they get all the way through their senior year of college or of high school, they definitely want to look at what colleges have the best cybersecurity programs. That's currently what I'm doing. Even as a sophomore, I was doing that as a freshman last year. And with Ubuntu, as we were talking earlier, Ubuntu is really good for cybersecurity when you get onto the more cyber part, when you try penetration testing.
Right, essentially, right. What you're saying is command line interface is where most of cybersecurity, if you're doing cybersecurity work, you're probably on the command line. Right. You're not using a GUI. You may be using PowerShell, but PowerShell is kind of like a command line for Windows. But you're right? So if you start thinking, maybe I want to go into cybersecurity your senior year of college, that's probably a bad plan because you haven't prepped up to that point. And I applaud you for thinking about this in 10th grade, simply because there's things you can do now that will get you much further down the line for when you get to college, or stuff you'll already know that you can do more advanced stuff once you get there. So where are you guys looking for college?
I'm still doing research, but I have seen that Georgia does have the best cybersecurity program so far. I'm still going to be checking for my senior year because, things like that can change over time.
Yep. And I would say, actually, if at your age, if you could find free internships and stuff to work at companies around Huntsville, because they need personnel. Now, not all, a lot of them require security clearances, so that makes it harder to get into, simply because you're under 18, you're not going to get a security clearance. So that makes that complicated. But find more non-defense oriented companies and just offer to be like tech support for. Start in IT. IT and cybersecurity are not the same thing. They are related, but they are distant cousins. So IT is kind of you're making sure the network runs and you're making sure the mouse works and all that kind of stuff. But cybersecurity is a little different from that. But it's not bad to be like a intern for an IT group, because you kind of get an understanding of how networks are put together, because at the end of the day what you're doing is blue teaming networks. You're trying to protect the networks from being compromised from outside. The other thing I would recommend is start reading cyber intelligence reports. Like Mandiant does an annual. These are lengthy reports and they're hard reads, but you can get the gist of it by just kind of skimming through it. And it talks about who the threat actors are. Like if you don't know who you're defending against, you won't be able to defend against them. Like let's take China for example. TikTok. TikTok is for what it does it well, but it is designed by China to capture information from the U.S. people that use it and to manipulate what they think, quite frankly. Yeah. And I say that as a 20-year FBI agent who did cybercrime and counterintelligence. This is clearly a counterintelligence capturing program. Let's say you want to be a CIA officer in your 30s. You decide, hey, I want to be in the CIA. They now know what you look like, have facial recognition, and you can only work in certain places. So I say all that because I hate TikTok. It's not good. But
I definitely agree with you. And one of my friends at church actually gave me, since they also do cybersecurity, things like that, they've given me books to kind of learn the commands for things.
Yeah.
As I get them out.
All right, he's going into his book bag to get the books to show me, which is very bad for when we're talking on a podcast when there's no talking. So that's kind of
sorry.
That's all right. All right. So, the Rainbow books. Yep. Red Team Field Manual, Blue Team Field Manual. Very nice. Yeah, this is from a series called the Rainbow Series. Yeah, that's a lot of command lines. That's good. Yeah.
And not just that, but he also gave me a book to work on my CompTIA A++ certification. So definitely going to do that soon.
Yeah, I would definitely say that for if cybersecurity is something you want to go to, find as many certifications you can get started with and go from there.
Yeah. Definitely.
So Teni, electrical and chemical engineering. Why that area?
Well, I guess I just like chemistry and technology a lot, but I'm still not sure which one I want to choose.
Gotcha. Do you like to build stuff and take stuff apart?
Yes.
And blow stuff up?
I'm not too sure about that.
Okay, fair enough. I'm thinking from the chemical side, you can blow stuff up with chemicals, but yeah, I get you. And I mean, mechanical, you're building bombs. I mean, in this town, mechanical engineers build all the bombs and the rockets and stuff. So, but it's okay if you don't like blowing stuff up. That's fine. There's plenty of areas that don't require stuff to explode.
Also, around the area, I've heard many electrical engineers say that it's good to minor in IT or cybersecurity. Is that true?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Because it gives you a diverse background for a different variety of things you can do beyond just the engineering piece, because you may find you get tired of programming, right? So you're like, this is kind of, not programming, I'm sorry, designing stuff, and you're like, this engineering stuff is kind of, but you have something else you could do. And also creates, you're going to have small companies that, maybe only 10 to 15 people. And so a lot of them are mostly going to be engineers, but they don't have an IT shop. So if you have that minor, you can help in that area. It just makes you more marketable. The more variety in your major and minor fields, the more marketable you become to those companies that are we looking to hire you and you'll be looking to go work for. And I will say one thing, when you guys are looking for your colleges, like be it, for cybersecurity, for electrical engineering, don't base it on the football team.
That is very true, unless you're wanting to be a football player on the side.
Sure, yeah. But I'm pretty sure most of them are not going to become electrical engineers. There might be the occasional one, sure. Some of them are, but not probably the punter. But maybe that's about it. Well, gentlemen, any other questions for me that I can help you with?
No, just that you're very funny.
When I was a high school teacher, that's what my students used to say as well. So I appreciate that. Yeah. Andrew, Teni, thanks so much for stopping by and jumping on the microphones.
Thank you for letting us.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the conference.
You too.
Goodbye.
So once again, I want to thank Andrew and Teni for stopping by the CyBUr Guy booth at the National Cyber Summit here in Huntsville. As I've said, over the next couple of days, we'll have a couple more of these particular interview-focused podcasts that come out. These will be shorter form because I only try to keep these to about 10 minutes for each person. So it's pretty quick and easy to listen to, so easier to put together. As always, if you have thoughts or questions or concerns or comments about the podcast, email me, Darren, at thecyberguy.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. That's where I do the majority of my posting for different pieces of cyber, whatever, news, opinion, education, things like that. So you can certainly find me there. I'm working on some other things in the meantime, and we'll talk more about those as the dates and time allows it. Know that knowledge is protection. If you understand the threats targeting you, you can assess your risk, proceed wisely. Thanks so much for downloading, for listening, for subscribing to the CyBUr Guy podcast. We will talk again soon.